So this week, Mitt Romney returned from an overseas trip to three countries, the UK, Israel, and Poland, that by most fair readings was a pretty difficult trip for him. He certainly got some of the things out of it that he wanted, but the trip at large really defined by a lot of stumbles that he had, most particularly in the UK, but I think also more importantly in Israel. And the thing that ended up being so controversial in Israel was his remarks at a morning fundraiser to wealthy American donors in Jerusalem, using a line he's long used about how, quote-unquote, culture is influential in the success or failure of different nations and peoples, but seemed to apply it in much more controversial fashion vis-a-vis the Israelis and the Palestinians. Now, the Romney campaign's response to the coverage of the actual statement was that he had been taken out of context. This is a point he had long made, but I think that kind of really misses the point and suggests something really quite significant on the part of the campaign, that they're either unaware or frankly didn't care at just how inappropriate that comparison actually is as pertains what an undeniably large part the Israeli occupation plays in the reality of Palestinian economic life.
Palestinians and Israelis may be in a conflict, but Palestinians and Israelis are people, equal. And such racist statements does not serve those who are trying to protect and save lives in this region.
Look, this was a campaign event for money and for votes in Israel, but to affect the election back home. Mitt Romney wasn't there to secure a peace deal, but it does suggest something about his worldview that he is at a pretty serious level, either by his own opinion or by the opinions of the people advising him, pretty deeply misinformed about actually what is transpiring in the region he was in. Mitt Romney also, of course, in his speech on Sunday night, made the very direct and very different from official American government policy reference to Jerusalem being the Israeli capital. The U.S. in its official position for decades, so as not to take sides, has always maintained official neutrality on the issue of Jerusalem. Now, what Mitt Romney did wasn't a dramatic departure from previous presidential candidates. The then candidate Obama in 2008 made a similar pledge to AIPAC, had to quickly walk it back. But I think what Mitt Romney indicated, added to his comments on Monday, the sum of the parts is that a President Romney, if he were to be elected, would already find himself facing a pretty serious trust gap on the issue. I think one of the really interesting things beyond the immediate impact of the comments themselves and the outrage they generated was the campaign's reaction to them. The initial response being, we were taken out of context, we didn't actually say what it is you said the candidate said, to then actually doubling down on the statements about Palestinian culture being perhaps determinative in why that economic imbalance exists between Israel and the Palestinian territories. I think quickly rose to the surface in a lot of the conservative sort of embrace of Mitt Romney's arguments, regardless of the clarification he tried to make for them, a really virulent anti-Palestinianism that kind of defines a core part of the far right of the Republican Party's approach to the conflict, one that doesn't make it any easier to solve, and certainly one that doesn't make it any easier to negotiate over.